afternoon is Brian Joseph Bayda. He was born in Saskatoon, Saskatchewan in 1961. In 1979, he began studies at the University of St. Michael's College in Toronto. He obtained a Bachelor of Arts in Philosophy in 1982 and a Master of Divinity in 1987. Further studies included a Bachelor of Education from the University of Manitoba in 1990 and a Diploma in Eastern Christian Theology from the Metropolitan Andrew Sheptyski Institute for Eastern Christian Studies in Ottawa, Ontario in 1997. He was accepted as a member of the Congregation of the Most Holy Redeemer, the Redemptorists, when he professed perpetual vows in 1986. He was ordained a priest in 1987. He accepted various assignments with the Redemptorists, such as teaching and directing the Minor Seminary High School at St. Vladimir's College, formation director at the Major Seminary of the Ukrainian Redemptorists in Toronto, and pastoral ministry in various parishes throughout Western Canada. After 21 years of priestly ministry, in 2008, Pope Benedict appointed Father Brian as the 5th Bishop of the Eparchy of Saskatoon for the Ukrainian Greek Catholic Church in Saskatchewan. He was ordained bishop in 2008 at St. George's Cathedral in Saskatoon, and he's going to be speaking to us this afternoon on the theme, Enculturated Evangelization, St. Cyril and Methodius, Our Lady of Guadalupe, and Eastern Christians. It proved to be a fascinating topic. Please welcome Bishop Brian Bayda.
Well, given the fact that some have had a tough afternoon, I thought I'd spice this up a little bit differently. I want to come from a perspective that is certainly not academic in many, many ways. I can't hold a candle against some of the academic giants, if I can call them that I was sitting at the panel with earlier today. And so I was wondering, prior to coming and then as I was getting closer to traveling here, why did Jack call me anyway? Why did he invite me? What was he thinking? You know? And so I'm coming to give what I kind of shared about and he had a taste of earlier in Oklahoma last year. And it's going to be more along the lines of not focusing on the Bishop of Rome as, you know, the Supreme Pontiff or some vast ecclesiological ramifications, which that's true. But I want to approach it as my brother in Christ. He's my brother in Christ. He's my pastor. He's my friend. And I really want to come and discuss things that he has said that have shaped my way of thinking and who I am as a Christian and as a Catholic, and perhaps lastly as a bishop in the last 7 or so years. I've learned to ask this question: what can a person do in the context of trying to be ecumenical and yet not have some, position of authority, of international stature or even lesser stature? What can a person really do? And I've put this in the context of evangelization. Ecumenism, I find, works very, very good in the context of evangelization. We're going to explore that. But in particular, enculturated evangelization, as the title suggests. If we are to unite, we must love one another, as Grace was saying. And if we are to love one another, then we must get to know one another. And I want to add lastly, if you want to get to know one another, we are invited to be vulnerable with one another. And so, I'm going to ask you to be vulnerable with each other for a moment. Something I've done in churches, various places, and I use this little exercise of being vulnerable with each other for our own mutual benefit. And I make some points and I draw some conclusions from that. So I'm going to tell one story because you may feel a little cautious. There were 3 priests who were ordained together. They were in the seminary and everything, ordained together, and then parted their ways because they were assigned to different locations and really didn't have a chance to bump into each other or catch up. As it happened, since they were such good friends in the seminary, one guy just decided to call the other, and the third was called, and yeah, let's do this. So they're going on a fishing trip. 25th anniversary, let's go have some fun. Nice little vacation. So there they are, sitting on the boat, fishing. And one guy says, eventually, I just got to share with you guys, in my ministry, in my early ministry, it became evident that I was an alcoholic. I was dependent on alcohol. I had an addiction, and it was pretty ugly for a few years there, and made a lot of mistakes, hurt a lot of people. But I had a very supportive bishop, had a very supportive parish, and with God's grace, I got over my problem, and I've learned to deal with it way better. I still have the problem, but I've been sober for 8 years, and I just wanted to share that with you. Wow. So, another guy, the second one was speaking. Well, it's funny you should mention that because, and he goes through the whole same thing, except it was with gambling. And the third sitting there going, is there something you wanted to share? They asked. Well, yeah, I don't know, I think you're going to judge me. Oh, no, we just shared quite openly. We were quite vulnerable with each other right now. I think you're safe. So you won't judge me? No. Well, I likewise have discovered a serious problem that I have, but my thing is that I'm still in the midst of dealing with it. I'm not very good at dealing with this problem I have. Well, what's that? He says, I gossip like crazy. So, we can talk, ecclesiology, we can talk structures, we can talk a lot about things. I'm going to try and invite you to go the sensitive route and be vulnerable with each other a little bit this afternoon. So, I'm going to tell you another embarrassing story that I had, and then I'm going to invite you to share an embarrassing story with one another. Okay, so you've got another 2 minutes to come up with an embarrassing story in your life. I was doing a marriage preparation with a couple. I sat down, we had our evening, and we wanted to go through the ritual. I went into the church with them, took out the crowns, crowning them, etc. Fine. And a week later, the bride-to-be, she comes with a couple of documents that I needed. And as she was doing her, errands, she had her maid of honor with her. And so she says, can you go over that ritual again? Because I don't understand it. There's one question. Can we try something different? Well, okay, let's go to the church. Went into the church, went to the tetrapod, put down the crowns to say, and so I'm going to crown your, well, can you stand in for 1 second? So I asked her fiance, her maid of honor, to stand in. So I crowned her as if that's the husband, and then I crowned her. And just as I finished doing that, a whole bus tour came into the church. And here I had 2 women seemingly being crowned. Anyway, I'm going to ask you to take a minute, share an embarrassing story with someone, your neighbor, and then be so kind as to listen to their embarrassing moment, and then we'll come back together here, okay? So 1 minute one way, 1 minute the other, just so that we can continue on. Because if you don't remember one, you can tell somebody else's story, but it's not the same. It's not the same as your own, trust me, okay? So we'll take 2 minutes. Go ahead. Feel free to stand up, walk around, find somebody that you know more or you trust better.
Frustrated, you know, especially something. Left us in a very, a little bit anxious and angry and so forth. Well, it's going to be all hands at the end of this month. We advise people to wait for
Okay, switch around.
maybe not wait for 2 or 3 months. That's what we do. Frame of reference. It's the worst
Okay, let us resume.
Please do. Planning on where to go. I hope for the best. Great. Now something. It's a priest from
Holy Father, now Saint, Pope John Paul II. I was, let's see, I was still in high school when he was made Holy Father. Discovered over the years that he had a real appreciation for enculturated evangelization. And in my preparation over these last several years, reading a lot of his documents, be the apostolic letters or encyclicals or whatever, I've kept an ear to the rail just to look for that and listen for that, and it's a theme certainly that has developed in his writing quite some time. So there is a significant historical past with Eastern churches that he expounds upon in an encyclical, Slavorum Apostoli, 1985. And I was interested when I read this, how insightful it was for me at least, and what an impact that it had on me as a Redemptorist who was somewhat concerned about evangelization. We preach, etc., we do missions, and this was particularly special to me because I, as a Redemptorist from the Yorkton province, experienced enculturated evangelization to some extent, because as an immigrant body of people in Canada, going into the 20th century, Belgian Redemptorists, Roman Catholic Belgian Redemptorists came to minister to us, but in the preparation saw that they needed specific kind of clergy, and they left their way of life in Belgium. They studied in Ukraine, learned the language, learned our ritual, and didn't just become bi-ritual. They left, as it were, being Roman Catholic and became officially Ukrainian Catholics, and came and served. the Ukrainian immigrants in Saskatchewan, where I've grown up. And so, being a member of that province, of the Ukrainian Catholic Redemptorists, that was another personal experience that I had of enculturated evangelization. Someone suspending, as it were, their past, traditions, celebrations, etc., and taking on mine so that I might learn it, so that I might benefit from it, that I might, love it. And it would change my life, that experience. So I want to quote a little bit from this encyclical. For the purposes of evangelization, the Holy Father says in there, the two holy brothers, as their biographies indicate, and he has a whole section in that encyclical on their biographies, they undertook the difficult task of translating the text of sacred scriptures, which they knew in Greek, into the language of the Slav population which had settled along the borders of their own region and native city, Salonika, and making use of their own Greek language and culture for this arduous and unusual enterprise. So that was a very noticeable gesture, if you will, that they did and went through. And I can imagine there's certainly things like that don't happen instantaneously, but it's a learning curve and an experience that transpires over some time. The Holy Father continues, they set themselves to understand and to the understanding and penetrating of the language, the customs, and the traditions of the Slav peoples, faithfully interpreting the aspirations and human values which were present and expressed therein. So that's pretty profound. That really stopped me in my tracks. To evangelize these people, okay, they look at the deeper lying aspects of their life, their language, customs, traditions, aspirations, human values, all these things, when they bring the gospel to them. Talk about Christ. Later in that same document, the brothers from Salonika were not only heirs of the faith, but also heirs of the culture of ancient Greece, continued by Byzantium. So obviously when any one person evangelizes, you do bring yourself, you bring your history with you. That's quite arguable. Everyone knows how important this heritage is for the whole of European culture, says the Holy Father, and directly or indirectly for the culture of the entire world. The work of evangelization which they carried out as pioneers in the territory inhabited by Slav peoples contains both a model of what they call today enculturation, and that could be I or E, enculturation, the incarnation of the gospel in native cultures, and also the introduction of these cultures into the life of the church. By incarnating the gospel in the native culture of these peoples which they were evangelizing, Saints Cyril and Methodius were especially meritorious for the formation and development of that same culture. So it's not that they just bring it to these people, but they further the development of the culture itself, obviously. Or rather, many other cultures. Indeed, all the cultures of the Slav nations owe their beginning, quote unquote, or development to the work of the brothers from Salonika. For by their original and ingenious creation of an alphabet for the Slavonic language, the brothers made a fundamental contribution to the culture and literature of all the Slav nations. But it is in the specific area of missionary activity that the example of Cyril and Methodius is of even greater value. For this activity is an essential task of the church and is urgent today in the already mentioned form of enculturation. The two brothers not only carried out their mission with full respect for the culture already existing among the Slav peoples, but together their religion they eminently and unceasingly promoted and extended that culture. By analogy, today, then, the churches of ancient origin can and must help the young churches and the peoples to mature in their own identity and progress in it. So, this is an important element of evangelization and, as I say, a part of humanism. Coming to be ready for not only sharing something that you have, but helping and developing the culture and the background of the people to whom you will speak. Be open to that. Finally, in the encyclical, the Holy Father says, it is essential to go back to the past in order to understand, in the light of the past, the present reality, and in order to discern tomorrow, which I thought was fitting for the Orientale Lumen topic that we're focusing on. It is important to go back to the past in order to understand, in the light of the past, the present reality, and then to order and discern for tomorrow. For the mission of the church is always oriented and directed with the unfailing hope towards the future. Changing gears. In 2009, I am now a bishop for a year, and I am invited ex officio to all of the Supreme Conventions of the Knights of Columbus. Okay? And so when I go to these Supreme Conventions, there was one in Arizona, Phoenix, and following the Supreme Convention, there was what they called their first International Marian Congress for the Mother of God. And this is where I saw a series of speakers, but in particular, a Monsignor Eduardo Chavez. Monsignor Eduardo Chavez holds a doctorate in church history from the Pontifical Gregorian University, and served as the postulator for the cause for canonization of Juan Diego. He is co-founder and rector of the Institute of the Guadalupanos Studies and is a canon of the Basilica of Our Lady of Guadalupe in Mexico City. He expounded and explains so much. He's quite an authority on the image, the story, etc., the apparitions. And he would always explain, upon the acceptance and the canonization of Juan Diego as San Juan Diego, that now catapults much of that research and everything, things like the chronicles about how the apparitions took place, the Nican Mopohua, that catapults it into veritable truth. This is what happens. This is not just another nice story now, because this being a saint, this is taken to be true. And so he talked about the image, explained things, the language that it says, and it struck me. He says, "Wow, that's just like our icons. This was written. This is theology. This is a poster. This has got a lot of more information than just a nice, pretty picture that some artist thought, sat down and wrote it up." So I had the chance not long after that to host him in my city, in my home, for 3 days, because he was making a tour through Canada, and I had to sort of help the Knights of Columbus host him, cut down costs. So we stayed at my place for 3 days. And during that time, I got to know quite a bit about Our Lady of Guadalupe from him. When are you coming to Mexico next? I said, well, this was October. Probably January, February. I hope to find myself on a beach for a vacation for a couple of weeks. He says, no. You will come to Mexico City. You will come there and I will show you some things. So he lined up a few series of profs and went to many museums and Antropologia Museo, and gave me quite an education, if you will, about Our Lady of Guadalupe, and shared a great deal. And we've become friends since that time. So this is how she sort of entered my life. I had actually been there in 1970 1974 as a little kid, when her image was still in the what they call the Antigua, Basilica Antigua, but now they've built a new basilica since then. And it was an interesting experience for me to be back and to see, thinking I never thought I would come back, but in fact, here I am. So about evangelization. Because of her, I learned that there is another important document, Ecclesia in America, that I want to focus on here today because it's a major part of the story. Ecclesia in America, given in Mexico City, January 1999, just before the third millennium begins, given by Pope John Paul II, and it has some profound remarks in there, if you will, that seem to make sense and helped me in my growth in developing this part of my faith. He said that we want to have, in preparation for the great Jubilee year of 2000, it was keen that there should be a special assembly of Synod of Bishops for each of the 5 continents. So there was an assembly in Africa in 94, America in 97, Asia 98, Oceania in 98, and they were hoping to have one in Europe for 99. And after that assembly of bishops in America, 97, then he writes this post-synodal, apostolic letter, Ecclesia in America, the Church in America. And he says, the theme for the assembly, encounter with the living Jesus Christ, the way to conversion, communion, and solidarity in America. The way to conversion, communion, and solidarity in America. Sounds like evangelization, sounds like ecumenism to me. The encounter with the living Christ, the way to conversion, communion, and solidarity in America. Put this way, the themes make clear the centrality of the person of the risen Christ, present in the life of the church and calling people to conversion, communion, and solidarity. And so, obviously, the starting point of this evangelization is the encounter with the Lord. This is central. And this is something that I, at least in my experience, can't overemphasize, and it shouldn't be underestimated. Your encounter with Jesus Christ in your life is something I think that every person should bring to ecumenism. Everything that they should bring in their whatever. Bring that encounter with Christ from that perspective. Not just something maybe that you read, not just something that you learned, something that God or somebody told you, a priest or a homily or whatever. Your personal encounter with Jesus Christ. Central to that meeting with others. The appearance of Mary to the native San Juan Diego now on the hill of Tepeyac in 1531 had a decisive effect on evangelization. Its influence greatly overflows the boundaries of Mexico, says the Holy Father in Ecclesia in America, spreading to the whole continent, America, which historically has been and still is a melting pot of peoples, but it has recognized the mestiza face of the Virgin of Tepeyac. Quote, in Blessed Mary of Guadalupe, an impressive example of a perfectly enculturated evangelization. Okay, so we're not just talking about some version of, some form of evangelization / ecumenism. We're talking about the perfect example, the perfect enculturated evangelization, says the Holy Father. It's a pretty bold statement. What else would you say about the Mother of God if it wasn't perfect? She's sinless. Consequently, not only in Central and South America, but in North America as well, the Virgin of Guadalupe is venerated as Queen of all America. Subsequent titles that were given to her is that she is the star of the new evangelization. Okay? So this is where these two, perhaps seemingly different or not often thought of approaches to evangelization come to the crux for me. I'm a Slav. I've been introduced to Our Lady of Guadalupe, the story, and I'm not sure if you haven't read the story, the Nicanor, the sort of chronicle, if you will, of it, certainly something to read. We won't have time to deal with it here. I'll just summarize for you what it's about. They're not sure exactly who composed it, who wrote it, although it's commonly proposed that it was Antonio Valeriano, okay, who lived from 1531 to 1605. It's widely thought to have been put together at around the year 1548. So 20 years after the actual event took place. And from stories circulating at the time, to the best of his ability, this is what he produced. So in essence, in December of 1531, it's important to remember, December of 1531, amidst the tumult of colonization and the clash of cultures, Our Lady of Guadalupe appeared 3 times to an Indian convert, Juan Diego Guatahuacolazzi, in Napo. While placing the apparitions within the context of the 16th century colonial world, this book that Eduardo Chavez and also the first Supreme Knight, if you will, Carl Anderson, wrote together, also reflects the contemporary significance of the Guadalupan story and its role in teaching us how to build a civilization of love. The Virgin Mary wanted a chapel built by the Tepeyac Hill, just outside present-day Mexico City at the time, and instructed Juan Diego to deliver her request to the head of the church in Mexico, who was then a bishop-elect. The guy who had been a bishop-elect from Europe comes over, so he's referred to as father, but he's also referred to as bishop in the story, Juan de Zumárraga. And as proof of her request, the Virgin entrusted Juan Diego with a bouquet of roses picked from the Tepeyac's wintry tundra. So he went and asked the bishop rejected it. He goes back and says, look, I failed. Go again and tell him. He went back and told him again, says, I want a sign. He goes back to the Mother of God and says, look, this is not working, he wants a sign. Do you know what it is? Because he didn't tell me what it is. Come back tomorrow morning, I'll tell you what it is. He goes home, his uncle's sick. Now what? I've got to go find a priest, prepare for his death. Runs into town, oh my gosh, here's the hill, she's going to slow me down. So tries to go around the hill. She comes down the hill and says, hello. I thought we had an appointment here. Yeah, but my uncle, he's sick and everything else, and I need a priest. And I'll get that, I'll do this right tomorrow, but I really got to go get this priest to confess him and bring him Eucharist. It's okay, relax. I've got this. Please, go up to the hill, get what's there. There's flowers, bring them down. I'll arrange them for you. Go to see the bishop. So, he takes these flowers as proof. And the Virgin entrusted Juan Diego with this bouquet of roses picked up from Tepeyac's wintry tundra. They shouldn't have been growing there, wrong season, etc. But when Juan Diego unfurled them in his tilma to reveal these roses from the Virgin, a far greater miracle was uncovered. And of course, that is the tilma of Our Lady of Guadalupe. So I don't know how large this is. Try the next one. If you can see on her blue mantle, her blue cloak, on her tunic underneath, it doesn't follow the folds of her garment. It's like a stamp of flowers and various. And some might think that's just a nice decorative pattern. But in fact, this is a language that the natives used to write with. And they used hieroglyphs. And so these are all highly significant pictures, words / pictures, explaining what this image is all about. And we don't have time to go through all of it. I'll mention in passing some of the significance of that. Again, to make my point, it's about helping them speak their language, help things that are familiar with that person that I'm talking to, that I'm evangelizing, that I'm speaking with, so that they understand, and not just say, well, I'm going to use my language, and if you don't understand it, tough. You know, when you think in ecumenical searches, well, this is how we define it, and that's how we say it. If you don't understand it, talk to the hand. So, number 26 from the Nikat Mapohoa. Then she says to him, this is one of the first times that she meets him, "Know for sure, my dearest and youngest son, that I am the perfect, ever-Virgin Holy Mary, Mother of the one great God of truth who gives us life, the inventor and creator of people, the owner and the Lord of what is around us and of what is touching us or very close to us, the owner and the Lord of the sky, the owner of the earth. I want very much that they build my sacred little house here, in which I will show him, and I will exalt him on making him manifest. I will give him to the people in all my personal love, and in my compassionate gaze, and in my help, and in my salvation. Because I am truly your compassionate mother, yours and of all the people who have lived together in this land, and of all the other people different ancestries. My lovers, those who cry to me, those who seek me, those who trust in me. Because I will listen to their weeping, their sadness, their remedy, to cleanse and nurse all their different troubles, their miseries, and their suffering." We're not talking sharing embarrassing moments. We're sharing our absolute need here. We're talking about that. Come to the mother. And that's what she wants to hear. "And to bring about all my compassionate and merciful gaze is trying to do. Go now then to the residence of the Bishop of Mexico, and you will tell him that I am sending you, so that you may reveal to him that I very much want him to build me a house here, to erect my temple for me on the plain, and you will tell him everything that you have seen and marveled at and what you've heard." So now when we look at this image, there is one, this is a copy that is done in acrylic, and it is for the blind, because the blind can't see it. So this is a copy right on the floor level, so that the blind can come and read her image. Below this ribbon, there is a little flower here, and that is the God that she's speaking of. That is the one symbol for this creator God. Okay? And so she's got a cincture or a ribbon around her waist, which means she's pregnant with this creator God. Okay? Here's another 8-petaled flower we'll talk about later. And here's another one here, which is kind of 3 types of understandings. It is a hill by water, which they would use that in their hieroglyphs. It is also a face with a nose and a mouth and water coming out, which is talking truth and prophetic speech. And it is also in the shape of a heart with entrails, which was also used when they spoke about how they would sacrifice people to the S-U-N, the Sun God. Okay? And so those images are very important later when we hear how people came to see her image. So the tilma, it is a codex. Itself is a codex. They wouldn't write on just some fiber of some plant or tree. She could have appeared on the wall of a church. I mean, where else could she have left her image? On just about anything. Why did she choose a tilma? It's not coincidence. It's very, very important. That basic components of the floral design overlying the Virgin's tunic. Okay? So there's that 4-petal jasmine. It's at the center. Alright? There's the 8-petal flowering. And there's the flower cluster that I showed you. Alright? So it says it's a human face. And that is the essence of a person. When I talk to you person, you have a face of a person. The other overlying fact that these are all flowers is that for the Aztecas, the Indians, the natives there, anything that was a flower was truth. If it's a flower, it is true. It's absolutely true. So when they're reading this, they're going, this is absolutely true. This is absolutely the Virgin Mother of God who's pregnant with this God Creator. And this is now, she wants this temple at the base of this little mountain, Tepeyac, right on the plain, right by the water. Another thing you need to know, the Aztecas, their little glyph for wisdom, understanding, governance, law, justice, civilization in general, is a temple by a hill. Either on a hill or by a hill. And so, that one little cluster of flowers has got 4 or 5 levels of communication. Okay? So she is using their culture to speak to them. Cyril and Methodius come up with a new language, a written way of Slavonic to express, to talk, to understand. She uses her tilma. Other things, just quickly. Her left knee is forward, so she's dancing, she's praying, of course, with her hands. There's another one of those hearts that are right here by her hands. Do you have the full image? Do you want to go back? There's one of those faces, those triple, this one right here, or right here. It's also right here by her hands. So she's saying, yeah, I know you guys give your hearts and flesh and everything to the sun god so that it can overpower the moon, because when you get to the winter solstice, the nights are getting longer and longer and longer, and now you're waiting, and yes, goodness, we got the sun and it's getting more and more daylight as the days go by, and yay, we're waiting. So we got to continue worshiping and continue giving your hearts. So she says, no. You no longer have to give your actual flesh, rip out your hearts to the sun god to appease. You don't have to do that anymore. He's going to give you his heart. You give me your heart, and I will give it to him. She, in fact, eclipses the sun. She eclipses the sun. He is at the center of the cosmos, the stars, the moon. This is earth. This is heaven. The cosmos for that. And so he's dead center of this. And this is, like I say, people see this. This is a poster. This is a poster. And they come and they go, wow. They read this and they go, well, where do we sign up? Because what happened? On December the 12th, 1531 is what? It is the winter solstice. (1531), we do not have the Gregorian calendar yet. At the time, it's about 10 days off. She appears at the end of their calendar. There's three different kinds of calendars that they use for planting and for religious feasts, and some of them blend, etc., etc. But she's at the end. 13 came. We're losing hope here. We're at the end of our calendar. There's going to be some big change. It could be catastrophic. It's like something. It could be the end of the world. We don't know. And they've been through this before. And a temple? A temple? Well, this is it. This is our new civilization. Here's our God. Here's what we worship. Here's the way it's going to work. Here's how we do it. And over 10 years, you have a turnaround, because the monks that came with the conquistadors, the Spanish, in short, they were coming for gold and slaves. And they wouldn't let the church talk to these people, even talk to them, because I need them for slaves. Don't turn them into a human being for me. Don't baptize them, for goodness sake. So they wouldn't allow them to mingle. Never mind the language barrier of Nahuatl and Spanish. So this is, Zumaraga, the bishop-elect, is at his end. He says, look, we're done here. Nothing's going to change here. This is a waste of time. Let's go home. And the Aztecs, they were like, we're done too. Our temples 10 years ago were destroyed. We've got nothing. We've got no worship. We've got no life here. No organization. No system. No governance. No civilization at all. We're done. At the last moment, at the darkest moment, her image appears. They read this like a poster, and in the following 10 years, 9 million or so, it's written, 9 million were baptized. It's an average of 2,000 baptisms a day for 10 years, for a decade. Coincidental? Maybe, but in Europe we're kind of experiencing a major rift in the Reformation. Whatever. The tilma. I'm going to read for you how Monsignor Eduardo Chavez describes it. For the Indians and the laymen, the impression of the Virgin's image on the tilma and the acceptance of Juan Diego's tilma into the chapel are perhaps the most significant moments. In the Indian culture, the tilma reflected social status. A peasant's tilma would be plain and undecorated, while a tilma with color and with decoration was reserved for a nobleman and people of high social rank. But it would have been powerful, cultural, meaningful as well. The tilma also represented what? Protection, nourishment. It was used for matrimony and for consecrating a person. It was used for protection against the elements. You'd wrap yourself in a storm or whatever, this tilma that they would wear. Do we got him wearing it? Yeah. And you would use it for sustenance. You would collect berries, wood, and nourishment, and all those things. So it would be life-saving to have it in some way. They would tie one off with the other in a marriage ceremony, in a matrimony. His to hers. This is the essence of who I am. This is like a profound symbolic gesture. They would learn from it that this is the very essence of who I am. And she seems to say, as it's interpreted, my son and I are now going to be your protection. My son and I are now going to be your nourishment. We are going to be your dignity. We are going to be your social status. We are going to be your human dignity. We are the source of this. And that's all communicated instead of it being on a church wall or somewhere else. Because she appears on the tilma. At this moment, all of Juan Diego's roles had previously impeded his total participation in the church after the conquest. As an Indian, as a convert, as a layman, as a man limited in social significance, that all changed. All are welcome in having an important and decisive place in the church and its mission of evangelization. So, evangelization is not just for the people in place of authority. Our Lady of Guadalupe would say, every one of you, every single human being is important in the role of evangelization. Every person is important in the role of ecumenism. Every one of you. In addition to high-level talks, visitations, and all the other discussions and meetings and conferences that are being held, your actions and your activities as an individual are important for ecumenism/evangelization. She says this with this tilma to Juan Diego. This is important when we think then about the pagan, or sometimes I like to refer to it as the pre-Christian time, at least for me, going back to my personal example now, in Ukraine. The land of Rus. Okay? You have an Old Testament which is fulfilled in the New Testament, which is fulfilled in Jesus Christ. And again, you can call it pagan. Their beliefs in tree spirits and water spirits and all these other kind of spirits, etc., etc., is a preparation. It's a preparation for their faith in Christ. It's a preparation for it. And so, in that sense, I refer to it as a pre-Christian time. Saint Cyril and Methodius bring Christianity to Slavs, and particularly to Rus, to be baptized. The magic moment that they call and refer to is 988. But that certainly, again, that was something that happened over, certainly years. And they take these pagan or pre-Christian practices, as we heard in that encyclical, and they give them Christian significance. So what they're doing is coming to a person, learning about the person, and giving Christian significance to who you are, to what you do, to the way you do things, to the way you say things, to the things that you value. Jesus Christ will give ultimate fulfillment to you and all that you know. It is in Him that all things are fulfilled. The tradition, the culture, the heritage, the daily life that I experience as Christ, as a Ukrainian Catholic, the way we greet people, the festivals that we have, the way we celebrate death, the way we celebrate resurrection, all those things, they're all very, very important. It seems, St. Cyril and Methodius said. But in Christ, they will reach their fullest purpose. As Our Lady Guadalupe showed, ripping out your heart and giving it to the sun god and throwing it on a stone table. You know what that means. You're no strangers to that. But you know what it really means? My Son is going to give you His flesh and blood. You don't have to give it to Him in the way you have in the past. He gives His to use once and perfectly for all time. Now you give me your heart, she says, and I will give it to Him, my Son. Everything about my past then is important in the dynamic of evangelization, in the dynamic, if you will, of ecumenism. Whether it's pleasant or it's not. In Jesus, it is fulfilled, it is transformed. And if it isn't, it always has the potential to be. Jesus Christ dies on a cross, the most ignominious way to die, most inhumane at the time. He takes this, and with love He transforms this way of dying, and now He gives it to you and to me as the most precious gift towards salvation. It is celebrated by every Christian. By every cross, it is celebrated. And it used to be the most vile thing. Vile. In Christ, Jesus transforms it with love. And in the sharing of that gift, evangelization takes place, ecumenism takes place. So, your embarrassing moment. How are you a different person? From the day and that moment, that embarrassing moment took place, how are you different? From the moment today when you shared it as a story. What happened to you? How have you grown? The day it happens, you don't want anybody to know about it. No one. Last thing you want anybody to find out about. And today, you shared it openly, publicly, and you laughed. What was horrible, what was something you didn't want anybody to know about, in love, is transformed, and it builds community, it builds relationship. Vulnerability it's risky, Some might be gossipy. It's risky. But it can build relationship. It can become a gift in the sharing. If Jesus can take that cross and transform it, is there any single moment, any memory, any event in your life that He is not able to transform? Is there anything? At the right time and place, in the context of love and proper discernment, anything about your life can be redemptive. It has the potential to be redemptive in Christ. In Christ. Samaritan woman at the well. She encounters Christ. She goes back to town to tell the people everything they already knew about her. Why was this different? Because now she wasn't afraid. Now it wasn't embarrassing. And in the giving of this horrible past of her life, it is a gift to people. It transforms those people. I'm not going to just take it from you. I want to go meet this man myself. I want to be transformed. I sense something in you that is way different than 10 minutes ago or from yesterday or the week before. And without any permission, because of her encounter with Jesus Christ, she is in the perfect authoritative position to go and evangelize and be ecumenical. Because it was her encounter with Christ. It was her event. And we all know that. We can kind of gather when people are kind of reporting a second-hand, third-hand thing, or somebody told me and I told them and somebody told. Versus it happened to that person and they know they were there. They were in the car when it rolled over. Okay, that's pretty authoritative for me. That's pretty authoritative. They know what happened. They were there. So there's that element about evangelization / ecumenism. To push that example again, that every person has. And our Mother of God says it's important. And in the context of love, it can change hearts. It can transform. Emmaus, another story in the Ecclesia in America that the Holy Father writes about. Emmaus, this is a little bit different. This isn't just an individual, Samaritan, going to tell some other people about her encounter with Christ. No, this is people who recognized Him in the breaking of the bread. They've been at a Mass before. They know about Christ. They've been in a Christian community. And they go back and witness to the community together about what they encountered together. And so it's not just a single file, well, I can interpret everything I want because I'm the only one and I can tell the story. Well, there's that place for ecumenism. But there's also that place where we do it as a community, as a spokesperson of the community, on behalf of the community. And that's why we have ordained officials, people leaders, that can speak with authority on behalf of, this is what our body believes, this is what our group believes, this is what our church official believes. Which is equally important as your personal evangelization. Different crowd, different audience, different impact, if you will, but very much equally important. So would say Our Lady of Guadalupe, or Juan Diego. So would say Cyril and Methodius. So, Juan Diego, he goes and tells. He's pretty scared. But Juan Diego goes and tells others about Jesus. He was the guy going to catechism into town, 25 kilometers on foot. And she interrupted his day. So we can look at that life that we have lived in this very same context. How am I supposed to go and tell others about Christ? Because I'm from a broken family, because I'm Ukrainian, because I'm from whatever I've experienced, because of my addictions, because of my problems, because of my weakness, because of the wonderful things in my life, because of things that I have celebrated and the accomplishments. Use it all. Use all of it in your ecumenism, in your evangelizing one another. I have an extended family. You've seen some of the pictures there. They showed you already. 22, 21. Those are my vignettes, if you will. Take all of that and use it.
Canadians.
I think the most important lines in the Nikan Mapohawa are these, 118 to 120. They're often quoted. And as I read this to you, this is the same Virgin, this is the same Theotokos, whether she appeared in Egypt or in Canada, whether she appeared in Zabaranetsia, whether she appeared in Lourdes, or wherever she appeared. It's the same Mother of God. I love this portion that I'm about to read because I have a close, if you will, attraction, and it works for me when I pray before Our Lady, our Mother of Perpetual Help. It was very important in my vocation. Although the Mother of Perpetual Help, if you will, has no particular English words connected to her, it is the same Mother of God. And so here is what she said to Juan Diego. I love to pray with these words in front of the icon of our Mother of Perpetual Help. Listen, put it into your heart, my youngest and dearest son, that the thing that frightened you, the thing that afflicted you is nothing. Do not let it disturb you. Do not fear this sickness or any other sickness or any other sharp or hurtful thing. Am I not here? I who am your mother, are you not under my shadow and protection? Am I not the source of your joy? Are you not in the hollow of my mantle, in the crossing of my arms? Do you need something more? That's what she told him when he was all anxious about his uncle. He didn't want to talk to her. And so our encounter with Jesus Christ, I think, is key for evangelization, for unity and solidarity with one another, as John Paul II says in Ecclesia America. Lest the church for Christ, present in this church, becomes something merely abstract, we need to indicate the specific times and places in which in the church it is possible to encounter Him. We encounter Him in sacred scripture, read in the light of tradition, the fathers and the magisterium, and more deeply understood through meditation and prayer. That's where we encounter Christ. We encounter Christ, secondly, present in the Eucharist. We encounter Him in the Gospel text concerning the final judgment, which states that, if you did this to the least of my brothers and sisters, you did it to me. There is where we encounter Christ as well. Holy Father says, we must not neglect the third place of encounter with Christ, persons, especially the poor, with whom Christ identifies Himself. And so some of these things are echoing now, obviously, as we've seen in centuries before, in the current Pope Francis, and the things he's said, the things he's done. Go to the poor, go to the peripheries. You encounter Him there. You'll see Him. You'll meet Him. You'll see Him in yourself, and you'll see Him there. It's funny, when I saw Pope Francis for the first time, I was with a group of bishops in the cathedral in Rio de Janeiro. And we had come with our late bus. So someone grabbed benches, ushers, and put them in front of the whole group of bishops and everything right at the front. You got the best seats. And as the Holy Father came by for the first time, he saw me dressed a little bit different than the other bishops, and he sort of tilted his head at me like this. I said, yo soy obispo en Canada por los ucranianos. Oh, Slava Isusu Christu. I'm a bishop for Ukrainian Catholics out in Canada. Ah, glory to Jesus Christ. He calls us to be, what is the Pope saying? We are to be missionary disciples. My last major quote from Evangelii Gaudium. In virtue of their baptism, Pope Francis says, all the members of the people of God have become missionary disciples. Matthew 28:19. All the baptized, whatever their position in the church, same message. All the baptized, whatever their position or their level of instruction of faith, are agents of evangelization, and it would be insufficient to envisage a plan of evangelization to be carried out by professionals, while the rest of the faithful would simply be passive recipients. Inconceivable. The new evangelization calls for personal involvement on the part of each of the baptized. Every Christian is challenged here and now to be actively engaged in evangelization. Indeed, anyone who can and has truly experienced God's saving love does not need much time for lengthy training to go out and proclaim that love. Samaritan woman, Brian Bayda. Every Christian is missionary to the extent that he or she has encountered the love of God in Jesus Christ. We no longer say that we are disciples and missionaries, but rather that we are always missionary disciples. If we are not convinced, let us look at those first disciples who immediately after counting the gaze of Jesus went forth to proclaim him joyfully. We have found the Messiah. The Samaritan woman became a missionary immediately after speaking with Jesus. And many Samaritans came to believe in him because of the woman's testimony. So too St. Paul, his encounter with Jesus Christ. So too with St. Cyril and Methodius. So too with you. It's waiting to happen. It's happening, and it's waiting to happen further. So, I wanted to come at this topic of enculturated evangelization, which I think is one and the same time very closely knit with ecumenism. It's about not just settling a score or a doctrine or some agreement or some event that took place. It's about us bringing each time we sit down at the table with somebody else, Jesus Christ and my experience with him and how I have been changed and how I needed to be changed because I'm not perfect. And that is how I have, if you will, in the last 7 or so years, looked at what the Holy Father has said, looked at Cyril and Methodius have done through his word, learned about Our Lady of Guadalupe. Can't be wrong. 9 million people in 10 years, that's a pretty good evangelization right there. It's pretty good. It can't be ignored. How is she, since my Ukrainian Catholic Church is also here in America, how is she my patroness? How am I to learn from her about being ecumenical and being evangelizers and being evangelized by others? Thank you.